what's good, self-direct investors? I hope you're all doing great, and I want to welcome you back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Jordan. I'm the mind behind Make More Capital, and today we're coming at you with this week in cannabis news from February 13th to the 19th. Now, before we jump in, if you enjoy this video or you learned something, please just leave a like on it as it really helps out my channel. And of course, if you want to learn how to take advantage of this generational investment opportunity, subscribe below so that you don't miss any future videos, and then there's plenty of content for you to come back, rewatch, and educate yourself with. I've tried to put all the news and facts in one place so that you can watch episodes over time to learn about the evolution of the industry, identify top companies that you keep seeing pop up, and take advantage whenever you feel ready if you wish to do so. We're going to start with some more positive data that we got. Thank you, Marijuana Moment, for relaying this federal survey that finds teen cannabis use trends downwards as more states legalize it for adults. We know this already, but more data to shut the prohibitionists up is always a good thing. And so main thing, just to jump to what the study looked at, the percentage of students who use cannabis has generally hovered in the low 20s for the past decade, according to YRBS results. Use of other substances like alcohol and prescription opioids is also trending down in the right direction, the CDC said. It's fair to say that if you've been paying attention over the last 3 years, there's no reason to believe or give any credibility to the CDC based on all the things they claim to be conspiracies that were proven true 6 months later if you just waited. The reality is this is not the first time we've seen these results, and so it is in line with results that we've seen in the past, highlighting currently drinking alcohol from 2019, 29% of respondents said yes, down to 23%. Currently using cannabis from 22 in 2019, down to 16% in 2021. And so obviously that's data prohibitionists don't want to see, but that seems to be the truth. And so we love to see this coming out of another source, especially one that a large portion of the US still does believe that there's some credibility in. And so a bit more if you wanted to read on interesting differences between females and males. And a little bit more down here, the first state started legalizing adult use in 2012, with commercial sales beginning in 2014. And so this might be a reference to another study used in the past, but again, just highlights the reality that when you end cannabis prohibition, teen use goes down. So with that business of cannabis, an older one from February 7th, but highlighting the U.S. legal cannabis industry will create 108,000 new jobs in 2023. That's the expectation. I believe crossing over into 2023, we've already gone from 423,000 to 500,000, despite the fact that this industry has both hands tied behind their backs and anyone in it can't even open bank accounts. It's outrageous. So just wanted to share this to highlight the benefit of ending prohibition. Again, jobs for people in states that obviously reform their laws. So a new study by Cannabis team estimates that some 108,000 new cannabis-related jobs will be created in 2023. And so the link will be below. Also reports a few other benefits of that of course, high-paying opportunities and entry-level jobs for people to start a new career. And so highlighting the benefits, if only the mainstream would get behind this. And so I wanted to highlight, though, the first big victory really out of the Senate for cannabis. Thank you, Cannabis Voter Project, for sharing huge. A U.S. Senate committee approved a bipartisan bill on Thursday to promote cannabis research for military veterans. And of course, I've been talking about that. Not sure how much this is actually going to benefit veterans as opposed to how the bill is designed to possibly benefit the government. We'll have to wait and see what the final version of it is, but becoming the first piece of standalone cannabis legislation ever to advance through a committee in the Senate chamber. So hasn't been passed or anything yet, but made it through its first committee. We'll keep updating this as it moves along, but you can grab the link below if you wanted to read through the whole thing and learn a bit more about the bill. Well, we got this little snippet from Headset to highlight some Valentine's Day data trends, so figured we'd share it since we just passed that holiday. Recreational cannabis sales increased by 5.2% this Valentine's Day compared to the previous 3 Tuesdays. And considering it's a Tuesday, midweek, good to see people willing to get out and spend a little bit more, to increase the love and vibes. Notably, pre-rolls up by 15.1%, topicals 14.6%, and beverages 12.1% saw the biggest increase in sales during the holiday. So thank you for sharing the lovely data with us, Headset.io. Well, we got this one from Forbes. Despite some stumbles, total sales in the U.S. cannabis market could soar to $50.7 billion by 2028. Keyword is could, says top researcher. So take this with a grain of salt again as we see these annual predictions, but main thing is if legal markets don't open enough legal dispensaries, how on earth are we ever going to catch up and, offset the illegal markets? That's the main thing that these lawmakers seem to be forgetting. But this one, again, comes from Brightfield Group. The market is estimated to reach over $31.8 billion in annual sales by the end of this year, 2023, going to $50.7 billion in annual sales by 2028. And so notice the 2028 projections continue to go down as reality sets in, and politicians show us who they truly work for. But nonetheless, a bit here if you wanted to pause to read it. Otherwise, you can grab the whole link. Well, we got this interesting one from Yahoo Finance as Anson hedge fund, a predatory Canadian hedge fund that has apparently been the one heavily shorting these US MSOs for a very long time, pivots to long wagers betting on weed stocks. And so I'm not going to read through this whole thing, just wanted to share it because it is interesting as we've covered Anson funds in the past. They like to use a lot of media outlets to spread fake stories and then benefit from, the reaction that some of those stories gets. We've seen that in the past too. It's unfortunate, but that seems to be the way some of these hedge funds work. And so regardless, the $1.5 billion fund began the year with a net long position of around 20%, compared with 9% at the beginning of 2022, according to Moaz Kassam, the firm's co-founder and chief investment officer. And of course, everyone was talking about cannabis being the best thing. They were short that 9% last year, so no shit, they were making money. Then people said cannabis is the worst industry in the world, so now we're very long. And so why I wanted to share this is because what Yahoo Finance fails to highlight is that Anson Funds is still under investigation by the SEC and the DOJ right now. So this is the same article from them, but thank you, Betting Bruiser, for highlighting this. Well, many of us, it's not that we've forgotten, it's just the fact that Anson Funds can still be under investigation, but still have so much money in the market and actively doing what they do. I guess that's just how things work. Guilty or innocent until proven guilty. That's how America should work. Fair enough. But nonetheless, this is positive because there's going to be less short pressure on the MSOs. That's essentially the point I wanted to get at. So just covering this, predatory short sellers are covering pot stock shorts, according to a laughable puff piece by Business Insider. I just featured Yahoo Finance, but Business Insider also ran the same story because that's all they do now. They just aggregate whatever. But what the article fails to report is that the same business has said Anson Funds and Moaz Kassam are actively under investigation by the SEC and DOJ. So I guess until the SEC and DOJ comes up with their ruling, they can keep doing what they're doing. Despite all the baggage, it seems like going forward in 2023, Anson Funds wants to be long. And so I figured I'd go to Short Data to check this out. And if we go to the CSE, the Canadian Securities Exchange, where the MSOs typically are listed, we only see 5 left: Trulieve, Green Thumb, Verano, Cresco, and Jushi. And we can see a percentage decrease in the change of short shares outstanding from my understanding. So if I got this wrong, let me know in the comments at all. But that is good to see and somewhat promising going forward. And so with that, MSO news, light week, but City Council accepts Trulieve's hybrid license to sell rec cannabis. So happy to announce Trulieve will be moving forward with its plan to sell rec cannabis in Bristol with the approval of City Council. So while Trulieve had to wait a little bit compared to some other MSOs, they finally got their opportunity. And what's interesting is she said that there was a catch-22 because the state would not give a license for hybrid cannabis sales until the City Council gave its approval, and the council could not give its approval until it saw proof of a license. More of these regulatory hoops. Hopefully they can smoothen these out. This is in Connecticut, of course, but Trulieve is set to hold its first day of rec sales this Friday in Bristol. So that would have been yesterday. As today we're Saturday. Tomorrow this will come out on Sunday, but happy to see Trulieve getting to expand into these markets as well, and dipping their toes in. While we've got this news from the Dales report, so thanks for sharing this. As according to Form SC13G, Nomura Holdings holds Air Wellness, 4.7 million shares, beneficially owned by Nomura Global Financial Products, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of Nomura Holdings Inc., the Japanese financial conglomerate with 64.7 trillion Japanese assets under management, Japanese yen assets under management. So a lot of assets under management this fund seems to have, and clearly they're interested in what Air Wellness has to offer at these prices, so they bought a large chunk. So, and I would just echo what Cannabis says down here. Again, this is not advice, just our opinions. If you're patient and willing to wait, if you can ignore the noise on the stock at these prices, you'll be rewarded. And I'm tempted to just put some of the more cash that I have into my bank account, send it into my TFSA, and just buy cheap shares of Air Wellness under $2 at this point, because I don't think I can go wrong. And I'm going to be starting working again in the next month, so might have to be my play. And so with that, some news out of markets. Pink Horse Capital. January Massachusetts state data shows continued price erosion, with retail flower prices falling another 6.3% to $202 an ounce, so very low prices in MA. But the good news, despite that, volume continues to remain strong with an increase of 81% year over year. And so the more dispensary outlets they can open, the more they can compete with the black market, the more you can get legal and safer product to your citizens. But the main thing to highlight is that at least we did see a big spike up in December, following a lot of the trends from other markets. Actually, Massachusetts would have been featured in the snippet I showed on maybe Wednesday or last week, but regardless, we did see them fall back again in January, which is to be expected after a big December. And so we'll be looking out in Massachusetts, like other markets, for a big spike in March and April, which we see jump up for the 420 holiday. Then we'll look out for July again, and then December's. That's typically the biggest trend that we see throughout the year. And so with that, we move on to Florida. The Office of Medical Cannabis Use looking at new dispensaries approved for this past week from February 13th to the 17th. Cureleaf opened a new location in Boca Raton. Jungle Boys opened a new one in North Miami Beach, and Sunnyside, backed by Cresco Labs, opened another one in Winter Park. And so the Florida increased their number of patients this week to 789,962, which represents a week-over-week increase of 1,329. So love to see that number back up. After last week was the first time we ever really saw a decrease. I'm not exactly sure why that was, but back over the thousands is what we like to see, into the 2,000 and 3,000. Those are the best weeks, but I'm sure they'll come back. And so with that, dispensations from February 10th to the 16th, we can see all the MSOs in the state, the number of active dispensaries that they have, and then the number of milligrams of THC sold from this past week, milligrams of CBD, and ounces of smokable flower. And so this is the data for Florida. We do get it week over week, and Pierre Gilles has not provided his updated flower and THC comp sheets, but when he does, I will post those in the comments so that you can take a look, as opposed to having to look through these numbers and compare manually. And so with that, the CenterSquare.com reports that Florida's medical cannabis program has grown 71% in the past 2 years. And so again, no doubt in Florida, doctors probably have it a lot easier to promote opioids and the status quo like they've been doing all along, and less incentive to start promoting cannabis. And so, of course, those that can promote cannabis are having success with it, as we're seeing success in the growth rate. But of course, just the potential is massive, and there's way more people that would obviously benefit from medical cannabis, and just means that while it's been slow growth, it's still positive, and it's not going to stop, I don't think. And so I'm not going to get too much into the story, but just wanted to share it because there's a lot of positive takeaways in one successful medical market that is Florida, and so you can pause to read it if you're interested. And so with that, wanted to share this from Hirsch Jane as a reminder that on March 7th, Oklahoma will be voting for adult use cannabis, and if OK legalizes in 3 weeks, the same thing will happen in North Texas on a much larger scale. 7 million Texans live within 3 hours of the OK border. Boom, that would be huge. Legalization in the heartland seems culturally and geographically more impactful than happening on the coast in the Acela corridor. And so here's a map of Kansas City metropolitan area. In green is where cannabis is now legal. The area not in green, the Kansas side, is where people will consume cannabis that they bought in Missouri. And so, man, huge. Love to be reminded of this. And as more states take action, we see more states getting jealous and wanting to, get access to legal cannabis. And so this one from Forbes, wasn't expecting this, but apparently a Texas bill would allow local cannabis legalization. Don't know much about this. First time I'm hearing of it, but wanted to share it because, of course, I'll be providing updates because Texas, with a state of 29 million people, could be huge. A Texas lawmaker has introduced a bill that would allow counties and municipalities to legalize recreational cannabis at the local level. The measure, House Bill 1937 from Democratic State Rep. Jessica Gonzalez of Dallas, directs the Texas Commission of Licensing and Regulation to adopt all necessary rules for the administration and enforcement of the bill, including licensing, regulation, testing standards, and transportation. Now, no doubt, though, they mentioned that there's likely a lot of friction that she's going to face, and so nonetheless, good news why she's obviously doing it. Most people in Texas want cannabis legalized, but yeah, what are the hurdles? Probably Greg Abbott and some other things. But nonetheless, first time we're hearing this out of Texas, just wanted to share, and we'll update you. Well, we got this one from Marijuana Moment. Hawaii Senate Committee approves cannabis legalization bills, and House panel passes psychedelic research measures. So main thing to highlight is that the Hawaii Senate Committee has passed, or at least approved, the first bill. Now, this does not mean it's become voted or become into law, but main thing to highlight is that while this is progress, the resolution has been referred to the Senate Health and Human Services Committee, which seems to be the next committee it has to pass through, but it hasn't been scheduled for a hearing yet. So while this is positive, no definitive timeline as to when we'll see this bill pass and become law, but I will keep you updated, of course, as well. So with that, thank you, Chris Norman, just for sharing this resource out of New Jersey. And so it seems like the regulators are starting to get their head out of their asses and working a little harder and making people aware of what's happening in the state, as New Jersey has now 21 adult and 11 medical use dispensaries currently, which isn't really something to brag about because it just highlights how undersupplied the legal market is, allowing the black market to continue to thrive. New Jersey ought to open hundreds of more dispensaries for the 8 million people there, and that way they can drive more legal sales, more tax revenue, and more job opportunities for those in their state. But nonetheless, many more coming in 2023. Some must start medical for 6 months and then can transition to adult use. Another regulation that they made in the past, thinking that it would serve a purpose, but likely they might as well just get rid of that because you want legal sales as opposed to illegal ones. And so nonetheless, this link is below, but I think it's more of just an interactive web page from the CRC. So it seems like they're trying to get this information out there more to people, which is good. But you can find medical cannabis dispensaries, medical and rec dispensaries located in New Jersey, all their information and data down here, and then dispensaries by county as well. And so more stories. Wanted to share this one out of Illinois, Marijuana Moment. Their governor says cannabis legalization has created over 30,000 jobs in the state since 2020. So just highlighting that ending cannabis prohibition is very beneficial in many ways, not just for tax revenue and sales growth in the legal economy, but also jobs and opportunities, equal access to opportunity for those in your state if you even allow it. Social equity focused governors. Main thing to highlight though, job creation is just one way that legalization has impacted the economy in Illinois. The state also saw cannabis sales reach a record high of more than $1.5 billion in 2022, according to data released last month. While officials touted the fact that there are more than 100 dispensaries operating in the state, including just 3 social equity licenses, what a farce, highlighting that equity is not equality, and when people think they're getting equal access to opportunity, the state's pushing equity to try and make everyone equally poor that were approved last year after a protracted effort by the administration to start fulfilling equity goals. And we're still waiting for those extra 185 cannabis dispensaries to be opened up, going to those harmed by the war on drugs. And while they were approved, there was a lawsuit that got in the way, but we're waiting for those from January 2023 to April 2023 to start opening up. Unfortunately, they do touch on that point, highlighting it has also outlined a plan to begin turning that around in the current fiscal year, with the industry set to significantly expand as nearly 200 new social equity businesses come online. And So while it's good to see that you've supplied job opportunities to those in your state, Illinois, time to put your money where your mouth is and actually provide some equal access to opportunity like you said you would. And so with that, we've got this one from Spotlight PA, highlighting 5 ways PA's medical cannabis laws could change in 2023. Now, of course, the keyword is could. More likely, we're going to see some changes to their medical program, such as expanding who's eligible for medical card and increased protections against DUI charges for patients, among other proposals, but there are other potential outcomes. So first, overhauling the medical program. You can pause to read or you can grab the link below if you're interested. Then we've got decriminalization, again, not in the best interest because it allows organized crime to get stronger, DUI protections, employment rule you can pause to read, and last but not least, legalization. While the efforts are being made, unfortunately, it doesn't seem like it's as much of a shoo-in as we thought from other states. And so with that, just wanted to share this from Toby Cannabis and Don Murphy. They had their cannabis chat on Thursday night. Big thank you to Don Murphy, 12A, for sharing his time, efforts, and insights with us. And so link will be below if you wanted to tune in. I did listen, and I thought it was very informative. And again, thank you, Don, for showing up, putting your money where your mouth is, and sharing more about you, your backstory, and why you're doing all this work. And so with that, wanted to share 10 reasons to be bullish on safe banking op-ed from Don Murphy himself. Now, take this with a grain of salt because obviously for years I've been talking about the potential of safe passing, and we know that it should pass because it's good policy. It makes the lives of Americans safer. It normalizes the cannabis industry, all these things that will change the status quo for the better. Unfortunately, it's not in our control when this can pass. So it's not like I want to be the one saying, hey, safe is coming again, as I do not claim to know anything. I just want to be the person delivering the news so that when this does happen in the future, I'll have a really cool time capsule to look back on, and you'll be able to say that you knew about the opportunity beforehand as well, and we will get paid at some point. And so nonetheless, link will be below if you wanted to read through this. And so do take this with a grain of salt because it doesn't mean safe is going to happen anytime soon, but the more interesting takeaway is that with the Republican-controlled House, chances are more likely than ever before that it's going to force the Dems' hand in the Senate to actually pass something. And so when Congress bucks conventional wisdom and shakes the cannabis world, you shouldn't be surprised. You can take it to the bank. And we're not going to be surprised because we've been waiting for it. We're waiting to be pleasantly surprised, and I do think that day is going to come. Not sure how soon, but it is still a matter of if, not when. What do you think? Let me know in the comments, but that is it for today's episode, folks. I want to thank you so much for tuning in, and I really hope you got some value out of it. What did you think of the stories mentioned? Let me know in the comments if you have any questions or suggestions, and I'd be happy to address them. But besides that, if you enjoyed this video and you learned something, please just leave a like on it. Subscribe below if you don't want to miss any future videos, and I'll catch you on Wednesday for a midweek update. Have a great weekend, everybody.